The Blue Chip Sports Network presents Get in the Game with Eric, Brian, Reggie, and Jordan on iTunes, the Blue Chip Broadcasting YouTube channel, and BlueChipBroadcasting.com.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Get in the Game. The gang's all here once again. I'm Eric Davis, along with my partner, Mr. Brian Nelson. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing good, Eric. Good to see you. We will discuss the butt kicking you put on me shortly.
Oh, yes, we will. We'll discuss that a lot. Reggie, the professor, what's going on, bud?
Hey, man. Good to be here. Glad to see your guys' faces. I'm feeling really good about this
not be
past
too
week.
glad.
Our fantasy league, things are going well. So I'm excited
yourself.
about tonight's topic.
Reggie's in a good mood.
Tonight is the night. If you're watching and you haven't yet clicked subscribe, or if you haven't liked any of our videos, go ahead and do that right now, because tonight's going to be a really good one. We've got some great stories coming up. I can't wait to hear what you guys are pulling out. I know I've got a fun one, so I'm excited.
And Eric, just so everybody knows, we have, since we began the video montage, we have nearly 400 views. So thank everybody for taking the time out to view. But tell your friends, subscribe, like. Let's get that up to 500 the next time we talk to you.
Just getting
I
started.
bet about 300 of those, though, are Eric late at night just rewinding and watching over again so he can watch himself talk.
I'm seeing how I can fix my makeup. Dawn, I need a little more highlighter. We also have with us the kid, Jordan Santa Maria.
What's going on, Eric? How you doing, man?
Hey, it is a quarantine, and I'm still at home. I'm not quite sure I remember what outside looks like, except I know I've got a dynamic garden. The lawn's looking good. Other than what's going on outside?
I've been working on my culinary skills, so the grill's been getting a lot of work outside. So
okay, so you know what that tells us? Chef master. As soon as we're off of this, Jordan is cooking for all of us.
I'm all for it.
We know that.
I'll bring the grub if he cooks it. I'm all in for that.
So, episode 80, Get in the Game with the gang, and it's all about strange but true. And you know what's not very strange but is true is the fact that in our fantasy league, I'm in a tie for first place. Not strange, but true. Reggie, why don't you tell what happened last week in our league?
Well, we rolled out our fantasy replay. This was the league where we got together and drafted baseball players from any point in history. And we've got guys from 1905 and guys from that are still currently playing, all on the field together. Each one of us has a roster of 25 players. We set our lineups this past week, and we each played 2 3-game series. I know that I played Jordan and Eric. And Brian, you played
Jordan and Eric.
And so Eric and Jordan are the only 2 that haven't played each other, correct? And Brian and I have not yet played each other.
And we're going to see nothing but each other this week, right, Jordan? We just took all Jordan's fun. He was supposed to set the schedule.
Hey, that's all right. Eric knows what's coming next week.
So, Reggie, some scores.
Well, Eric, you caught me with my pants down. Fortunately,
Thank God
we're
he's
on
sitting
Zoom
there
here.
he can't show anything.
It's a quarantine. Nobody's expecting you to be wearing pants.
And I'm only on video from the waist up, so it doesn't matter.
That's right.
Okay, so let me point out some scores here. In the opening day, the Chias, that's Jordan's team, traveled on the road and played the Nutcrackers, that's Brian's team. And it was a tight affair. Christy Mathewson ended up walking away with the win in a 4-3 ball game. The White Sox opened up on the road against the Exceptionals. We dropped that one. Billy Wagner got a win. It was a late inning come from behind victory for the Exceptionals in 6-5. So it was a great way to kick off the league. And from that point, though, it was all White Sox in our series with the Exceptionals. And the Nutcrackers and Chias split their remaining 2 games. Fast forward to the second series that we each played. The Red Sox took on the Chias, and we looked really good through the first 2 games. And then I just got blanked by Randy Johnson in Game 3 of that series as the Chias took the getaway game 6-0.
And, big unit, baby.
On the other side, Brian and Eric squared off, and the Exceptionals were the winner in that series all 3 times. It was the first sweep in Get in the Game all-time fantasy league history. So congratulations, Exceptionals. You got wins out of, looks like Pete Alexander, Tom Seaver, and Walter Johnson in that series. Those are some great names, and they dominated for you on the mound.
They did. I
So,
hit
Brian-
169 at the Polo
So
Grounds.
Brian, why don't you share with us the standings now?
That means that the Exceptionals and the White Sox are at 4-2.
That's
But
right.
because Reggie beat Eric head-to-head, Reggie is actually in first place
No, he's
I love
actually not.
he had to throw it
in the
I love it.
tiebreaker. And then Jordan and I are tied for third at 2 and 4. And because I beat Jordan 2 out of 3, then I'm actually third and Jordan is in fourth. So
That's really not the way those standings work, Brian. It really isn't. Yeah. But tell me all about this team that you drafted of romantic baseball guys. You know, did they hit again?
they hit 169 against your pitching in the Polo Grounds, the easiest home run park around. How does
And they're
that happen?
throwing spitballs. They're rubbing up the baseball. They've got,
I know.
Vaseline under the bill of their caps and stuff. I don't trust these.
Okay,
except
here's the
for
thing
like-
I don't trust about this game. The greatest defensive right fielder in baseball history, 12 gold gloves, Roberto Clemente, makes 2 errors in 6 games. He'd go seasons without making 2 errors.
Coach, it's
Eric
all
turned
about
on the
positioning.
sprinklers.
So here's
Oh,
a couple of guys that really stood out from the first week. Randy Johnson, in his start, 8 innings, no runs. He gave up just 5 hits. He struck out 8 and walked 4 in his win for the Chi-Chi.
I have a question. Why did he only pitch once?
Yeah. Three
Hey,
Fingers
happens.
Brown.
I'm trying to save him.
Mordecai, a complete game, 9 inning, 1 run game where he gave up 7 hits. He struck out 4, walked 3. He got the win. Again,
With only 3 fingers, guys. Only
Yeah.
3 fingers.
imagine what he'd do with 5. Tom Seaver from the Exceptionals, he went 7 innings, only gave up 1 run on 1 hit. Struck out 7, walked 3 against the Nutcrackers. For the hitters, Mike Trout, Chias leads all hitters after just 2 series, 6 games. It's early. He said
Does that
Temporary
surprise anyone?
legend.
No.
Yeah, I mean, that guy's
No.
solid.
417 for Mike Trout. The leading home run hitter belongs to the White Sox, and no surprise here, it was the Babe. He's got 3 home runs in his first week. Ted Williams from yours truly. He drove in 8 in 6 games. He leads the league in RBIs. And, of course, Mr. Hamilton, Billy
Hamilton.
6 stolen bases, leads the way for the White Sox. So
Hey,
just,
you
okay.
left out one important stat. Leading the league in strikeouts. That'd be my Mickey Mantle.
just saying, the most important thing to know is that the Exceptionals are in first place. We'll keep you posted from here. So, and now let's transition to the strange but true. And let's talk about some of those things that have gone on, whether it's baseball or other sports. But I know most of us are really focused on baseball because we're missing it. Being quarantined and locked up in the house, I'm ever so tempted to watch Korean baseball.
I've actually
I've seen
watched
it.
a little bit of it
Yeah.
because I was bored
Not
out of
bad.
my mind.
They got some interesting things going on over there. I
Yeah.
mean, from
They-
the fake fans to the cheerleaders to they got some things going on.
Okay,
Well,
They,
and
they
big
got a
question.
mascot up in the stands pumping up nobody.
Yeah, that's
That's
my
all-
point.
that's fun to
You got a
watch.
mascot and cheerleaders and nobody in the stands. What are they
Well, there's
doing?
cardboard cutouts behind home plate in the first 2 rows. If you
They're
watch the
having
game,
fun.
they've cut people's faces out and put them in the stands in the first 2 rows behind home
Hey.
plate.
You know, you have to have something or somebody to bat flip for. I mean, they are bad boy bat flippers.
For
Yeah.
sure.
That's why Bob
Like-
Gibson never pitched in the Korean Baseball League.
I love that culture. I really do. Cause I tuned in, man, it was like the Samsung Giants or Lions or something like that. They all their teams are sponsored. So it's the Samsung Lions. I just flipped it on one morning and it was the replay from the night before. some guy gave up 5 runs in the 3rd inning, gave up 3 home runs, and on the 3rd one, he just turns around and he's laughing, smiling like it's no big deal. You know, they're happy people, and it's fun to watch.
So, Eric, you know what Reggie's telling us is that
I'm not
when
sure.
everybody goes to bed, he turns on K-pop.
That's probably
yeah.
what happened.
Oh.
Without a doubt.
Jordan, you know what K-pop is, don't you?
I do know what K-pop is. That's not really my wave, but you know, I'm not against it.
Mine either.
I've had Koreans in my house for the past 16 years, I think. And so we know all about K-pop. We all know all about the KBO. And we know about Koreans coming over. But let's talk about some things now. And Jordan, I want you to kick us off with something weird.
Sorry, Eric. Your comment just threw me off real quick. Sorry, but all right. Yeah, I'm back. Easy there, Reg. Take it easy, man. But so with the strange but true.
We're gonna become the voice of the KBO right now.
Oh,
What? That wasn't in the script, Eric. But let's do it. Let's go for it.
Hey, in fact, Reg and I tag team to get a team name right, I think is pretty impressive.
Yeah. Thank you. I got Samsung. I knew because I have a phone.
oh my goodness. But all right, boys. With the strange but true. The way I thought about it as, you know, ritual. So can you guys see this screen that I'm looking at right here?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
All right.
I'm a man.
That's one of the legends. One of the
Tark.
legends in college basketball. Tark, exactly. Tark. So one of the rituals I looked up, he always had that towel in his mouth, and he bit it hard, and he always had it with him. And I don't know if it was, you know, stress or whatever it was.
It looked like Brian when there's a fly ball to right field.
You know, but come to find out, he actually would just he would almost get like cotton mouth, like his mouth would be so dry because he'd be yelling at his players, and he was all energetic, and everybody knows about Coach Tark. That he would go to the water fountain so many times that he told his assistant, "Look, just get me a wet towel, man. Just get me a wet towel. I'll put it in my mouth, and I'll bite this thing, and we'll get through this together." So that's Coach Tarkanian with the legend of his towel.
Okay, do you know the 3 schools he coached at?
I got
three
UNLV.
schools?
That's
UNLV, Fresno State, and I'm not sure.
UNLV, Fresno State, and
Long Beach?
Long Beach State. Very good, Eric.
Hey, bring it on. That's for our next quarantine quiz.
Get that man a towel.
But yeah. So our next strange but true, the greatest.
How do we know
tennis
he was
player,
going to sneak in a picture of Serena through this, huh?
the greatest tennis player, men's or women's, really. And I chose this distinct picture. Do you guys know why? This distinct picture.
I could say some things, but I'd probably get in trouble. So I'm not going to touch it.
Take it easy, Brian. I chose this picture because we could see the socks that she is wearing. So the weirdest, strange, but true story about Serena Williams, the greatest female tennis player, is that at any tournament she goes to, she does not change her socks.
For the whole
From
tournament?
from round one to the finals. It is
No
up for debate.
laundering?
I've looked at many websites. Hold on, I've looked at many websites. It's up for debate if she washes the socks, but she does not
she's gotta
change the
wash them.
socks.
You got to
She
wash
doesn't change the
them.
socks from round one to round, championships, because she's won so many titles.
Whatever pair she starts with, she finishes with. Is that what you're telling me?
She finishes with those pair.
And we may not wash those?
And we may not wash those. That's up for debate.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay, so I think it's pretty clear at this point that Jordan is in talks with a fabric company for sponsorship. He can't come out and say the name, but he's gone with towels and socks so far. So I know that there's something going on under the table.
Well, it does.
Well, hopefully, if they're
explain a lot.
essential businesses, maybe they can sponsor. They might have money.
Maybe. But you know, it does explain a lot. Most Serena's competition never charged the net. I think I now.
I mean, we thought it was the power, but
They just want to stay as far away from those socks as possible.
Notice those handshakes are real quick, too. Oh,
You know who this guy is right here.
Guy, the Mad Hatter.
Les Miles, the former LSU coach, current Kansas Jayhawks football coach. His famous, strange but true thing that he did before every game is that he would pick up grass or turf off the ground and eat it before the game. And he said that it reminded him of, being humble and coming from, certain beginnings. But eating grass, that's just
How
different.
does that make you humble? And by the way, it would have been the only time in his life he'd been humble.
Well, here's my other concern. If you're playing in the SEC, right, you have to play at Rocky Top in Tennessee. What is the Tennessee mascot? A dog.
Oof.
Do we sense a problem potentially there?
Oh, big problem. He also
Texas
said that
A&M?
LSU had the best tasting grass out of all stadiums, which is also
because
weird
it's
comment.
a fake tiger.
I
got a baseball one for you guys. Brian, who's this guy, man? You're a baseball historian.
I know
that is the crafty lefty, Mr. Steve Klein.
Mr. Stevie Klein, former Giant, former Cardinal. His strange but true kind of ritual. If you could see his hat, you could see how dirty his hat is. So his hat, he would keep the same hat from game 1 to game 162, all the way through the playoffs. He would not change or wash his hat. He would rock the same hat throughout the season. The Cardinals even made it a fan day. So they had Steve Klein Hat Day, where they gave out hats that were purposely dirtied. And the first 5,000 fans wore the Steve Klein Hat Day.
And everybody thought that when he went down to the bullpen and nobody sat with him, it was just because he was weird, because he was left-handed. It was the hat. By game 85, that's a little gamey.
Oh, God. Nasty.
Remember, St. Louis is hot and muggy all summer long.
That's why
we're talking,
game 85, middle of June or July, late July. Yeah. Not good.
Sweat, seeds, everything. Oh,
So,
Stevie Klein.
So my question, before we go to the next one, hang on. Jordan, you're probably the most recent one to have played. What was your cockeyed pregame?
I don't know. I thought about it actually when I was doing this. I feel like the weirdest thing is that I used to listen to like R&B music, so like soft music before games. Like, some people do like, harder like rock or, like something to pump them up, something more upbeat. I was kind of going like, like slower, like Usher and like just weird music,
Eric, I was thinking, just knowing Jordan, smooth operator.
There
exactly,
you go.
like
don't
like
sing, Brian.
Music.
Don't sing.
All right, this is my last one, and then we can get to the rest of the stories, Eric. But this is Mike Bibby, okay? Mike Bibby, and on 27 Signs, you're a diehard Kings fan. This was one of those things that you needed to know, is that because Mike Bibby was so nervous during the game, like he was so amped and stressed, to help him focus, he used to just, maw at his fingers. He'd bite his fingernails. Eventually, it got so bad that the trainers had to give him nail clippers during timeouts and anytime he was on the bench. And as you could see, they have pictures all over the internet. You can look it up. He is cutting his nails on the bench anytime he's sitting. Good old Mike Bibby. During the game. During a timeout, I watched a video of the coach drawing up a play and Mike Bibby's cutting his nails.
Wow.
All time rituals.
So Jordan,
wow.
You said for you would slow things down, right? Listen to some cool jazz. I can take you one step further. The bigger the game,
Eric would hop in a freezer.
The more I slept.
He tried to slow his heartbeat.
No, the bigger the game, the more I slept. I would sleep on the bus. I would sleep as we were traveling. I would sleep in the locker room. But the bigger the game, the more I slept until the game started, which is weird.
Yeah,
Reg, what about you? Anything?
Yeah, sports are ripe for little idiosyncrasies like that, right? Because an athlete's they're just trying to control their environment, because if they can familiarize themselves with the feel of what things are like heading into a big game, then they'll reduce pressure. There's psychology behind it. And for me, what I used to do, I always wore number 12 when I played basketball and baseball. It was my number. It was the one that nobody else wanted it, and that was what was left when I got to pick, but it landed with me and I stuck with it. And so what I do is I'd take a dime and put it in my right shoe and 2 pennies and put them in my left shoe or cleat. Just because, like it was 12 cents and it just, I just felt like, if it was a 3-2 count or something like that, I could just step out of the batter's box, rattle my cleat a little bit in Little League and remind myself, okay, everything's normal. It's all good. I don't know. Just weird.
No blisters.
No blisters. No. Yeah. Fortunately, I avoided injury. It's probably
That sounds uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Now, Brian, you're the only left-hander in the group, so.
See, mine goes to food. Before I'd play basketball, I would have macaroni and cheese and yogurt before I went into the bus or before I headed over
together?
to the not
You didn't mix them
together.
together.
That's a lot of dairy.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I don't know.
Ooh.
That's kind of upsetting a little bit.
Man,
Like,
Hey,
You're worried about
first time. Here's the thing.
Serena's
First
thought?
time I did
Man, I
that.
wouldn't want to sit next to Brian on the bus ride home.
I was going to say third quarter on. This is not a good place to be.
Man, he's got the macaroni sweat.
So first time I did it, Eric, I scored 32 points.
Okay.
So I did it every time after. Guess how many times I scored 32 points after that? That would be 0.
There was a bunch of other rituals that I could have had pictures for, but this is a certain type of podcast, so we're not gonna put those pictures up this time.
Oh, thank God.
That'll be
Especially
for
now
like
that
a
we're visual.
yeah,
So you know
Blue Chip
there's-
After Dark or something.
Get in the game, late night edition.
Uh,
Oh, man. So Wade Boggs had an unusual food
Yes, he
deal.
did.
And for as long as his career was, which I think, 17, 18 years of a career for Wade Boggs, chicken before every game.
The man ate chicken.
Remember Ryan Vogelsong of the Giants, World Series hero? You remember what he ate before every start?
Enchiladas.
Yep,
Chicken
chicken enchiladas every time.
Interesting.
Never lost a
Yeah,
postseason start.
that's a good life
So
right there. Chicken enchiladas.
we get away from food, and there's a baseball player that I remember, and I looked at him today, and I was going to show a video, except it would have taken up most of our podcast time. Mike Hargrove. Have you ever heard of him?
I remember Mike
Oh,
Hargrove.
yeah.
His nickname-
I know
Human
Mike.
rain delay.
nickname was the human rain delay.
Oh, yeah.
I watched a 5-pitch at bat that was over 2 minutes long. 5 pitches.
Why did you do that?
Because
I know this quarantine thing is bad, Eric, but you were knocking the KBO, and you're sitting around watching a 2-minute 5-pitch at bat. Come on, man.
every pitch, he would step out, bat his cleats, pull up his pants, reach to the back, pull his pants up in the back, shoulder, hat, tighten his gloves, bat, tighten his gloves, step out, look around, step in, and at this, you're just watching the picture. They kept I know the picture. Anyway, they kept the camera on the picture, and the picture's like going, today? And
The funny thing is now, Eric, half the players in Major League Baseball, that's normal,
that's probably true.
which is why our
I just
games
was-
take forever.
I was unbelievable at how long he took between, and the umpire actually would take his hands out of his pocket, just stand, and it would go on forever. The human rain delay, weird.
That's nuts.
So I have a story, and it's less weird and more, I can't believe this happened kind of thing. Strange but true, right? Only one time in the history of Major League Baseball, has a pitcher lost a 9-inning no-hitter. One time. Now, some pitchers have taken no-hitters into extra innings and gotten beat in every inning, but only one time has a pitcher pitched 9 innings, given up no hits, and lost. And it happened in April of 1964. A guy by the name of Ken Johnson used to pitch for the Houston Colt 45s. He played a game against Cincinnati, and he pitched 8 innings and was brilliant. No hits. And he was facing Joe Nuxall, another great pitcher. He threw a 5-hitter, but it was 0-0 going into the top of the ninth. And with one out, Pete Rose drops a bunt down the third base line. He races over to field it, throws it away. Rose ends up at second base. Next batter comes up. And with one out, he rips a line shot right back at Johnson. It goes off his shin. The third baseman picks it up and throws the guy out. But now he's got this, orange or grapefruit size contusion on his shin. And now Rose is over at third base. And there's 2 outs now. And the last guy up hits a little routine grounder to the second baseman. The Gold Glove second baseman at the time, who makes an error, allows Pete Rose to score, and they win 1-0 in the ninth. What makes this even more unusual is just before that inning, Johnson comes up in the bottom in the bottom of the eighth with 2 outs, nobody on, and he hits a fly ball that goes 375 feet and is caught at the fence by the right fielder.
Brutal.
He comes out and then loses 1-0 on a no-hitter. And this is a guy who he was the year before. He had a 2.65 ERA. This is not a fluke. He was in a streak where he had won 13 straight starts, including 2 games in the 64 season before this happened. And he loses a no-hitter in the ninth. The only time in history that's ever happened.
And now it's called getting caned. Maybe it should have been called getting Johnsoned.
No, I'm pretty sure it shouldn't have been called that.
Yeah.
Jordan,
You guys can jump on that.
That's more material for your late night.
We call that a tease.
Yeah. Oh wow, we almost have the blue.
Eric, I hadn't thrown one out yet this year.
Wow.
That probably should segue Eric into my story, huh?
Sure.
So it happened on Thursday.
I can't get it out of my mind, though.
Hey, that's not my problem. So it happened on a hot, muggy, mid-July, Thursday, late afternoon in 1979. Eric will remember these, the good old-fashioned Eric Twilight doubleheaders.
Oh, yes.
Played the games back-to-back.
Bring them back.
Like 1 and 7, but 1 ticket gets you 2 games, and it was a battle of bad teams. It was the Detroit Tigers and the Chicago White Sox, who were combined like 23 games out of first place in the middle of July.
They're getting Johnson by the rest of the league.
It worked.
Reggie, they hold a lot in common with the Chichias and the Packers.
Oh wow!
Wow, it's getting rough.
Okay.
They're going to have this night at their game.
Because no, we won't do that. But because they had not been drawing well because the teams were bad, Mike Veck, who is Bill Veck's son, and Eric, we almost need to do a podcast just on Bill Veck because it would be so entertaining.
Sure.
Bill Veck, who was the master marketing guru of sports in the 50s and 60s, came back and rebought the Chicago White Sox in the late 70s, playing at Comiskey Park. And his son, Mike, who at the time was late 20s, early 30s, worked with a local DJ to create a promotion to try to get people into the ballpark. What they did is they took the upper deck sections in Old Comiskey Park and they offered 98-cent ticket night for a doubleheader.
That's a great start so far.
And all you had to do to get in for 98 cents was to bring a disco record and give it to the ticket office, and they would return you at 98 cents, and they would return you the ticket for the game. And so, sound like a great idea. And then in between games, they would have a ceremony to dispose of the disco records. Because at that time, the radio station that this guy Steve Dahl worked for, the Loop, was a rock and roll station, and he was very anti-disco. He didn't like the whole disco, style of music.
Didn't
He
like
was
the
an
vibe.
old-fashioned rock and roll guy.
Yeah.
So, but here's where things get interesting. Some of you will
Like
know
Eric
what
and
this
the
story
KBO.
is. Here's the part that's funny. So Steve Dahl is supposed to go out, Eric, and throw out the first pitch. Okay? He goes out to the mound to throw out the first pitch. Well, the Loop had a very attractive spokesmodel. Remember the spokesmodels back in the day? And so she went and met up with the catcher.
Like there's no spokesmodels anymore?
I've
Everybody
never seen. Do you see
spokesmodel.
spokesmodels anymore?
Except for getting the game. Maybe that's something we need.
I'm not touching that one.
That's good.
That's worse
that
than
would
what I
get you
said.
in trouble. That would get you in trouble. You can't do
Thank
that.
you.
So my point being, he goes to look up to home plate to throw the first pitch, and the Chicago White Sox catcher is making out in the dugout with the spokesmodel. That's how the day got started.
Wow.
That's
And
hilarious.
so the first game is played, and the Tigers jump out early. They beat the White Sox 4-1. However, there was such a draw to this 98-cent night that they ran out of space in the upper deck sections, and people that had brought their records had to buy a regular ticket, but they didn't turn in their records. They brought them into the stadium. They found out that those work really well as Frisbees. So the players during the game were ducking, flying Frisbee disco records. And there were signs all around the stadium that said disco sucks. There were golf balls being launched from the upper deck into the playing field with the phrase disco sucks on the golf ball. This is before the in-between game situation. So the game ends, the Tigers win 4-1. They bring out this huge container full of disco records, right? Well, by the way, capacity at Comiskey Park is 47,795 people. The estimates from those that were there that night and people that were there all the time estimated there were over 60,000 people in the stadium. People had climbed the fire escapes on the backside of the stadium and had snuck into the game.
One way to fill the park.
They were hanging from the foul poles.
Hey, Jordan, even you and I can afford the 98 cents.
Oh, God. We're buying season tickets for 98 cents, buddy. That's
But you have enough disco records to turn in. So
Eric
the
does.
Steve Dahl guy, he comes out and what did Jordan say? Wait a minute, I didn't hear that.
I just said Eric does. I mean, I wouldn't have one, right? So,
Oh, you didn't know that? Right as soon as we click off of this thing, that's one on and gets down with those stuffed animals that he has in the background. He has a disco party, man.
Hey, Reg, Eric was 17 years old when this went down.
ooh,
You
he
two
was
weren't born,
prime
and I was just a
disco
little
Eric.
child.
Prime disco
Learn
Eric.
how to ride a bike.
He had his
you know?
hair grown out and everything. I love it.
Oh,
So
yeah.
Look at that.
Anyway, to get back to the story, they called it Disco Demolition Night. Okay? So they bring Steve Dahl out in full fatigue and an army helmet. And he created a group that was called the Insane Coho Lips Group. And they were all anti-disco people. So he gets everybody wound up. They shoot off fireworks off the field. And then they had put TNT into this container with the disco records.
That
And
seems like the next logical, yeah.
makes complete
TNT.
sense.
Why wouldn't you?
Of a
Why
ball
not?
field before another
Why
game,
wouldn't
right?
you?
It blew him up so bad that the records went 200 feet up in the air and landed all over the field. It created such a lather that people got so excited that they stormed the field. And one of the things that happened,
Oh, yeah. Now that looks like a party.
That's in between games.
That's in between games.
They're
That
gonna
looks
storm
like
the
a
field.
party.
there.
They took out the pitching rubber. They took out home plate. There was multiple eyewitnesses that there were individuals having human relations behind second base.
Wow. When did this show go blue? It is just
What is going? We're gonna have to go into a whole different genre of the podcast
Wow.
section
Hey,
That was
after
so
episode
I'm
8.
just
too. That-
reporting the facts.
wow.
Okay.
Oh,
And then there were people just
that was
all
very
over
Bill
the place.
Clinton of you, by the way, Brian. Nicely done. Very Bill Clinton way to go with that one.
You like how that worked? You see
Yeah,
that?
that was good. Yeah.
And then they estimated 10,000 people ended up on the baseball field. So Eric, you being a little bit of having been to Wrigley Field, know a little bit about Chicago baseball. Do you know who the play-by-play television announcer was for the White Sox in 1979?
It wasn't Hawk Harrelson, you know.
No. He's much more famous for what he did on the north side of Chicago.
Was it Harry Carey?
Yes. They gave Harry Carey the PA mic to try to get the fans off the field.
Good luck with that.
Imagine how successful that worked.
Hey guys, get off the field. Hey everybody, it's time to return to your chairs.
Actually, closer, I'd say, please return to your seats. So that didn't work at all.
But
Then,
after one game, Harry Carey was already 3 sheets to the wind. So
Oh,
and then Reg, so not only did that happen, but then they discovered that they could, they got all this going on. Oh man, I lost my one picture. I lost the picture I had of the they actually got the batting cage from behind center field, dragged it out into the middle of the outfield, and scores of people jumped up and down and completely demolished the batting cage. But that's not all.
because that the batting cage stood for everything disco.
And then they lit a bonfire in the middle of center field.
who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? You know? I mean, why not? I mean, holy smokes!
Shouldn't you mean holy cow?
I mean,
Oh,
nobody robbed
man.
concessions. Like, no one was hungry. Like, they
No, they all went
decided
onto
to do all
the field,
that.
Jordan.
Yeah.
And so we're not.
Wow.
So Harry couldn't get him off the field. Bill Veeck, the owner, tried to get him off the field. That didn't work. So the only way they could get everybody to disperse, here came the Chicago PD in riot gear. They showed a video of it. That entire 10,000 people was off that field in less than 2 minutes.
Hey, for 98 cents, that was a night.
And you're supposed to get 2 games, right?
No, you're not going to get 2 games now.
Now, so the Tigers manager, who was Sparky Anderson,
Was it Sparky?
Sparky Anderson came out, and the field was such a wreck that he said that there was no way they were going to play a second game. So the Chicago White Sox had to forfeit the second game. It is the last forfeit in American League history.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
They're
a
out
promotion
of the
gone
playoffs
horribly,
anyways.
horribly wrong.
Here's the most interesting part about the couple of things that I watched on it. I watched like an hour and a half of documentaries on this. It was so interesting. There is people in the music business that actually believe that that was the night that disco truly died. Because after that happened, all the disco clubs, discotheques that were around town, nobody went to them anymore. They ended up having to go underground, and all of those discotheques by 12 months later were all country and western bars. And so it was really the end of the disco age.
Okay.
So very, very strange but true. Disco Demolition Night, July 12th, 1979.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard that story, Jordan?
I've never. I think Reg is talking, but he's muted. I don't know.
You're right. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was trying to answer your question, Brian. I saw Reg.
I got
down there
excited.
in my
I heard
right corner.
batting cages were being torn down, and my phone fell down. I must have hit the mute
Reg
button.
got excited with the relations behind second.
Oh man! Yeah. Wow.
Okay, Reg, how are you going to follow this up?
Well,
I suggest you bail on what you had. Just do Harry Carey impressions from now on.
I'll save that one. We might pull that out later. Okay, so it's really interesting that we all kind of ended up around the same geographical location, same sport when we were doing our research here, because the event that I looked at took place on July 15th of 1994 in a game between the visiting Cleveland Indians, who were on the road to face the Chicago White Sox at Comiskey Park. Now, obviously, we now know that the 1994 season was stopped short due to the baseball strike. Sorry, a little inside joke going on. But so at that time, Cleveland goes into Comiskey Park. They're 51-34, one game behind the White Sox. So this is a really big game, right? And the Cleveland Indians were led by this guy named Albert Bell, who was – what's up?
You want to talk about a mean dude.
Ooh, yeah. He was he fits on the exceptionals. I'm surprised you didn't draft him.
I was thinking about it.
Yeah, because he had a reputation for just being a major league jerk, just an absolute jerk, right? And so in that strike-shortened year, just to kind of give you an idea of how good he was in his prime, he finished the season. He only had 400 at-bats because the season was cut by about 50 games. He finished with a .357 batting average and 36 home runs. He was an all-star left fielder DH for the Indians. Solid dude, right? So the Indians waltz into Comiskey Park, and there's rumor that maybe Albert, he's kind of a jerk. Maybe he's cheating a little bit. So the manager of the White Sox, Gene Lamont, gets wind of this and goes up to the crew chief, Dave Phillips, and he invokes a challenge of Albert Bell's bat. He says, hey, I want to get this thing looked at, right? And according to Major League rules, a manager can challenge one opponent's bat per game. So he elected to use his challenge on Albert Bell on this night. So Dave Phillips confiscates the bat before the game, takes a look at it, shakes it a little bit. It seems a little fishy. He says, you know what, this deserves further investigation. So he has the bat taken back and locked in the umpire's dressing room. Okay. So at this time, he's already made one appearance on this podcast. The Cleveland manager was Mike Hargrove, and he knew for a fact that Albert Bell was using a corked bat. And so he tried to figure out what he was going to do about this. He devised a scheme in which he employed the relief pitcher, Jason Grimsley of the Indians, to try to find a way to take this bat back or switch it out with another bat. So there, game's going on, right? And here Hargrove and Grimsley are sitting in the dugout, drawing out a map of Comiskey Park, trying to figure out how, where this bat might be locked away and how they can get there. So Jason Grimsley takes off and goes to the Indians clubhouse, looks up and notices that the ceiling there is a false ceiling at Comiskey Park in the clubhouse, which means there's like a ceiling below the actual structural ceiling, which means that there's like crawl space in between the ceiling and the structural component. So he slaps on a couple of batting gloves, puts on a gardener's mask, finds himself a flashlight, and shimmies up into the ceiling of the Indians visiting clubhouse, and he starts army crawling through Comiskey Park, seeing if he can locate the room where this bat is located. He finds it, right? He finds the umpire's dressing room, drops in, swaps out Albert Bell's bat with a different bat. Seems like everything, makes his way back to the Indians clubhouse, shows up in the dugout, trots out to the bullpen. They seem like they've gotten away with it, right? At the end of the game, though, Dave Phillips walks into the dressing room and notices that something seems amiss. Things don't look right. He notices dust littering the ground. He looks up and he sees that some of the structural components, like the metal bracings that hold up the roof tiles, are bent a little bit. And then he takes a look at the bat because he's like, man, this thing sure looks a lot shinier than it did at the beginning of the game. So I don't know. It just looks fishy. Looks at it, and sure enough, there stamped on the bat is the name of Paul Sorrento, one of Albert Bell's teammates, not Albert Bell, right? So quick thinking Dave Phillips hops on the phone, calls Chicago PD, also their second appearance in this podcast. They come on down. They go full forensics, full CSI. They dust for fingerprints. They find out the entry and exit points of the supposed burglar, because Phillips reported it as a burglary. So, Bud Selig, iron-fisted Bud, as he's well known, right? He says, okay, we're going to solve this problem. Cleveland, you have to furnish the original bat used by Albert Bell for testing. Otherwise, I'm going to get the FBI involved. So he threatens FBI action on Albert Bell. Albert Bell. Sorry, I just dropped my phone. He threatens FBI action on Albert Bell and the Cleveland Indians. So they go, okay, we got to do this. So the end result was that Albert Bell and the owner the general manager of the Indians, his name was John Hart, they had to go down to the MLB testing facility and watch Bell's bat be x-rayed and then sawed in half. And sure enough, it was corked. So Albert Bell received a 10-game suspension, of which he only served 7 of those games. But nobody knew that Grimsley was involved until 1999, when he shows up in a Yankee uniform. He's now pitching for the Yankees, and he comes out and he goes, yeah, I did it. And everyone goes, man, Grim, why did you use Paul Sorrento's bat? Why wouldn't you just use another one of Albert Bell's bat? That's like America's Dumbest Criminals or whatever, that old show. Well, it turns out that all of Albert Bell's bats were corked, and so he couldn't use any of them. He had to go and switch it out with one of Paul Sorrento's, Clean Paul, as he's well known. Had to use one of his bats. And so anyways, that is the story of Albert Bell's suspension. There have only been 6 players in Major League Baseball who have been suspended for corked bats. On that list are other names like Sammy Sosa. Albert Bell was one of them. Greg Nettles. And then, just a side note as I wrap this up here, in my research, I came across the name of a guy by the name of Phil Garner, journeyman infielder.
Yeah. Played for the Astros.
Ironside. Right. He was scrap iron.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. So he admitted on a Houston radio station at one point that he hit a home run off of Gaylord Perry with a corked bat and never got caught. And then he, in his post-playing career, he became the manager of the Houston Astros, and he admitted that the Houston Astros used corked bats in the 2005 World Series, again against the Chicago White Sox. Man.
Poor White Sox.
The White Sox get a bad rap, dude.
Yeah. They ended up winning that series, though, so it was a sweet finish for them.
So what you're saying is that of the 2 times the Astros have been in the series, they used cork bats and they stole signs.
Yeah, Wow.
That's dirty.
Yeah.
And now I don't feel bad for the Houston Colt 45s losing the no-hitter game. They got what they deserve.
That's right. Man.
Got what they deserve. Now, I'll tell you what. Albert Bell, I remember watching Sammy Sosa when his bat exploded. And you could see the stuff come out of it.
So Sammy Sosa cheated pretty much every way you can.
Every way you can.
Yeah.
And where did he play? Oh, yeah. Back to Chicago.
Started out with the White Sox, ended with the Cubs.
Man, what is it about the White Sox tonight?
I don't know. I don't know.
All we haven't talked about is Shoeless Joe.
Oh, yeah.
Which
That's
Hey,
right, and
hey, he's a Right Sox. He's a Right Sox. Shoeless
And
Joe.
how did he do
Plays
this
for me
week?
right now? What's
how
that?
did he do?
Oh, he's struggling. He's hitting like 169. He's about to get yanked.
Hey, at least you only
He's
have one guy
trying
hitting
to throw
169.
game.
My whole team hit 169.
Yeah.
Oof.
Oh,
That is
man.
really
And you beat
bad.
me twice. That's just wrong.
Oh,
that's
you got
why-
Johnson.
that's why
Jordan,
I'm
you got
drooling.
Johnson by the Right Sox.
That's why I'm drooling. I've got you for 6 games this week.
We'll see. We'll see. Next podcast.
Hey, just
Tune
know,
in.
I'm the best hitting team in the league so far. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Okay.
I'm hitting over 300 as a team. Just
But, you know, Jordan is the only guy who didn't win a series last week, which means he's due.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Yeah. I'm glad
Oh,
I'm
by
not
the way,
winning.
guys, we have a poll up on Twitter right now. And who's going to win the Get in the Game Classic? Reg, you and I do not have any votes.
I
Right now, the
gotta
votes
hit
are split
Twitter
right
tonight.
down the middle between Jordan and Eric.
I
gotta-
think
I gotta
Eric
hit
voted
Twitter
for
tonight.
himself. He tweeted or I don't even think he has Twitter. You don't have Twitter, Eric. Come on, man. What are you
I got
doing to
Twitter.
rig
I
these?
just don't know
What are
how
you?
to use it.
What are you doing to rig these votes?
Yeah, but his son does. That's where he got the vote.
That's what it was.
Okay.
No.
Dirty.
No. Just know that those people know what they're talking about. So we're going to do something right now, something we haven't done in any other podcast. We're going to throw out, and I know that Jordan and Reggie are going to be surprised by this because they weren't part of the pre-production meeting that Brian and I were having. But just as a teaser for our next podcast, I think it's going to be really cool for us to talk about The Last Dance and talk about Michael Jordan and his career, talk about him a little bit, talk about some basketball because they're starting to make rumblings that basketball may be coming back in some shape or form here pretty soon. But let's talk about The Last Dance next week. For this week, you've been listening to Get in the Game, our podcast on strange but true happenings throughout the sports world. You know, what we want to remind you to do, if you liked what you saw, if you had a good time, if you enjoyed it, subscribe, interact with us, leave comments, drop notes, be a part of the growing Blue Chip family. We are very excited that you decided to spend your time with us, and hopefully, you know, you laugh a little bit. Hopefully you hear some stuff that you didn't know and you learn something, but more importantly, that you have a good time.
And you heard some things you probably don't want to repeat to your children.
Well, they're going to put us on a different
Thanks to
time
Brian.
slot.
Out of all of us, thanks to Brian.
Really? You know? So next time we get together, we'll be talking about The Last Dance of Michael Jordan. Anything you want to add, Brian?
No, I think I've said enough tonight.
More than enough. Reggie.
Nah, I mean, you know, like it'll be a good one. I'm working my way through the series myself, and it's been fascinating. A lot to talk about. About that Bulls team.
Excellent. And Jordan?
Favorite player, favorite sport. Can't wait.
Let's do it. That's next week, The Last Dance and Michael Jordan. So for all of us here at Blue Chip Broadcasting, for Jordan Santa Maria, Reggie Wright, Brian Nelson, Eric Davis, I want to say thank you for listening, and remember this one thing: no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, get in the game.
You've been listening to Get in the Game, an exclusive presentation of the Blue Chip Sports Network. Get in the Game with Eric, Brian, Reggie, and Jordan on iTunes, the Blue Chip Broadcasting YouTube channel, and BlueChipBroadcasting.com.